You are listening to Peak One Sports.
Happy Saturday and welcome to the Leadoff on the Peak One Sports Network. I'm Ashton, that is Tony, and we are here to get you ready for your sports weekend. And Landon should be joining us here in a little bit to talk some baseball. How's it going, Tony?
Not too bad, not too bad.
It's good. It seems like it's been a while since we've had the Leadoff on with all of us, if Landon is able to jump on and everything.
Yeah, it's been there's that busy time of year, busy spring, kids and holidays. It's kind of a weird time to be consistent.
Yeah, and Saturdays are always the busiest. I mean, I don't know why we thought that this was the best day to do this when we started it. We're like, can do it. And then, I mean, we still are able to do this show on Saturday mornings. But it seems like it's getting earlier and earlier to get it finished so we can go do our family obligations on Saturdays.
Yeah. And then, I'm busy with sports with kids, and it's just business is booming. So it's just a busy time of year, but it's always fun to be able to get on this show, talk sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And Landon will be jumping in here. If he is able to come on, he'll just jump in here pretty soon. Got a couple of sponsor shout outs to get here through. Say goodbye to unruly behavior and hello to a well-mannered pup. The Dapper Dog Academy stands out as a top-notch canine training institute located in Cleburne, Texas, and serving the DFW Metroplex. Owner and trainer Korri Bennett has nearly 10 years experience helping your canine companions become the best version of themselves with personalized training programs tailored to suit your pup's unique personality and needs. Korri is committed to helping your pet reach their full potential. Contact Korri and the Dapper Dog Academy on Facebook or call and schedule consultation today. All the info is in the description box below. And this episode is also sponsored by Betalytics. Don't bet with your gut. Use Betalytics in their AI algorithms to make smart picks. You can use promo code PEAK1 to get 25% off when you sign up today. Again, thank you for tuning in. However you're listening, if you're listening on later on a podcast, then go ahead and follow us. If you're listening on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you like us, hit the like button. If you don't like us, hit it twice. So Lane is going to jump on and talk baseball. So I guess we'll save baseball for when he gets on, because he may be pretty limited when he's able to get on. So we'll start with football, in general, the NFL, and the Kansas City Chiefs have some weird situations going on just after winning the Super Bowl. I don't know if we've had a Super Bowl winner or right after winning the Super Bowl go through this issue. But a ballot measure that would have helped fund a new stadium for the Kansas City Royals and renovations for the Kansas City Chiefs Arrowhead Stadium have failed. The vote was on Tuesday, and then question 1 in Jackson County failed to pass by a margin of 58 to 42%, so not exactly close. With 56,000 plus voting yes and 78,000 plus voting no, per the Kansas City Star. Now, that seems like normal politics, sports politics, right?
Yeah.
But shortly after the measure failed, Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson posted on social media, "Welcome home, Dallas Texans." Is there any chance that the Kansas City Chiefs leave Kansas City?
I don't think so.
I mean, usually they're like, when you're dealing with this issue, it's a bad team or what. We've never seen this issue with a Super Bowl winner, a 2-time repeat Super Bowl winner.
Yeah, you would think that the revenue that the team brings in would
cover it,
would justify it, but the community, and we all know that to be true, I think throughout the country, is the economy's kind of a wreck. Inflation's at an all-time high. It's expensive, and nobody wants their taxes going up. We've talked about it on other shows and other podcasts that the things we deal with in our small town with trying to get bonds and other things passed within the town and the schools that, because inflation is so high, it's really hard to justify that and to get those passed. So it's not surprising that they didn't pass this right now. But to go back to your point of will the Chiefs leave Kansas City? I don't think so. I don't think they're going anywhere.
Well, the
But
Chiefs haven't said
resolu
anything specifically about it.
Do what?
Uh, the Chiefs haven't said anything specifically about leaving. The Royals did say that, um, it's kinda far off, but they said that, after the 2030 season when their lease is up, they will not be playing in that stadium. Um, Kinda far off, but in reality, 6
If
years,
you
I
were gonna
mean,
build a new stadium, though,
you
that
kinda need
that
to get
would
the deal done in the next couple of years, yeah.
yeah.
But then again, that could just, people strong arming, like, "Yeah, we're not gonna play, we'll leave." But, that seems to be the threat these days. The Bills
Yeah,
did it, they said they were gonna leave to get a new stadium.
I mean, does the NFL obviously has to approve it. I mean, does the NFL approve a team moving, and especially another team in Dallas? I'm not saying that you can't sustain that. I mean, especially if it's a successful team,
I
you
mean,
know
I think you could for sure sustain it with football here, especially as fair weathered as some of the Cowboys fans are. You saw it when Houston came in, how many Houston Texans fans there were
yeah.
in Dallas because they're like, "Well, I just don't like what the Cowboys are doing," and they jump on that bandwagon. Um, I think it should work, or it could work, but the reason this is even a thing, I mean, Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson a couple of years ago mentioned that they were open for another team to move in because the Cowboys were in Arlington, not
Yeah.
even Dallas County. Their headquarters are in Frisco and Collin County. So they'll say, we'll build a stadium in Dallas. We'll get it passed. And I think at the time he had not reached out to, but kind of publicly commented like he is here, the Chargers, because they're kind of just that second team in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
and that's why it's a thing, but there's a couple of pinpoints here. Obviously, the Chiefs used to be the Dallas Texans for the first 3 years of their existence. Uh, the owners are the Hunt family who own FC Dallas, uh,
Very predominant in the
very
Dallas
predominant
area.
in Dallas area. I'm pretty sure most of them. I don't know, you say live here, but they have property here.
At one time, I worked on one of the Hunt family's properties when I
Yeah.
was in landscaping.
Yeah, so, I mean, very, very prominent in this area. So, they haven't mentioned it, but if they were going to relocate, I think Dallas would kinda be up there as a possibility. Um, but you said it, the owners would have to agree, and how strong is Jerry Jones in that in the NFL to not want this to happen? I mean, he fought hard not to for Houston to get a team, and he's been fighting for San Antonio or Austin to get a team. Can't even imagine getting one in Dallas.
Yeah.
Uh, Eric Johnson did say a couple of years ago when they were talking about that is Jerry Jones should be excited about this aspect where if you get, Tex football is big in Texas. If you get a second team in Dallas, that becomes the football capital of the world.
Mhm.
And that second team is never, I mean, not for a couple of generations going to surpass the Cowboys in popularity
Yeah.
and the brand, and that he would be like the king with the most popular team in the capital of football, the world capital of football. Uh, I don't know that Jerry Jones sees it that way, but it's kind of an interesting prospect.
I couldn't imagine Jerry Jones would wanna share this metro area with another NFL
Not
franchise.
with a very successful franchise. Can you I mean, it would take
I mean, he
years
wouldn't
for it to
the
even
thing is
happen.
Jerry Jones doesn't look about so much the success as he does the, success off the field, I guess. The
Yeah,
jersey sales, the popularity of your players, the
yeah.
worth of this franchise. You're gonna split that in a town. I can promise you that
Even if
gets
it's
split, even
even
for
if it's
diehard Cowboy
90-10, even
fans.
if it's 90-10, that's still 10% away from the
I
Cowboys.
think it's more than that. I really do.
Yeah.
You bring in a successful team here, I think you have a lot of Cowboys fans jump off the bandwagon.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like I said, Houston Texans, I remember there's kind of a that used to be a thing, like, "Hey, we're Houston Texans fans," like, in the early 2000s when they first came out. Um, I you bring an unsuccessful team, the Chargers, or I think the Jaguars were talked about at the time, but now the Jaguars are a lot more successful. Well, than they were. That if you bring the Chargers in here, like day one, you're going to have, um, call it a bandwagon. But then again, if you get a new team in a new city, technically everybody's a bandwagon fan.
I mean, I couldn't
Jumping
say that
on.
I wouldn't wanna follow a new team if they came to Dallas that
Yeah,
I might
exactly.
not be like, I'm not gonna jump ship from, "Oh, I hate the Cowboys," but, my fandomship would be split for sure if we had another team
Yeah,
in
cheer for
town.
that other team outside of, like, when they play the Cowboys or whatever. But, it's nice if, the Cowboys disappoint again and that team might be successful, especially if it was the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't see it happening either. A a lot
Jerry would fight it as much as possible, and he carries a lot of weight within the ownership throughout the NFL.
yeah.
I think he could get some people on his side to keep. Sorry, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're good.
The joys of a live show, huh?
You hit that sneeze button perfectly, but you didn't mean to. That was your sneeze button. You mute it and then there you go.
Um, but, I just I think Jerry carries too much weight in the NFL that he would get votes for blocking this and not allowing another
Yeah,
team.
I don't remember. It didn't have to be unanimous for a team to relocate in the NFL. I'm trying to remember when the Chargers and Rams relocated. I don't know if it needs to be unanimous, but yeah, it's gotta be vast majority, and if Jerry Jones just has to get a couple of play unless he can make money off this, which, like, he made money off he was a big proponent of the Rams going to LA because he made a ton of money off of it, mostly through his, like, concession,
Yeah.
contacts and deals, whatever he has there. Like, unless he could just make a ton of money off of it, I don't know, but I don't know that bringing another team could make him enough money for what he would I wouldn't say lose, but what he would split and having I think it would be cool,
I do too.
Dallas Fort Worth is the biggest metropolitan area in the United States that does not have a second team in some sport. If you count, San Francisco and Oakland, because they're right with them, but because San Francisco, Oakland's part of it. They're about to not have San Francisco's about to lose Oakland, speaking of relocating, this year, which we'll get to later when we talk baseball. But you have New York has two of everything. Chicago, a couple of baseball teams, and Los Angeles has a couple of in a lot of sports. So yeah,
Yeah.
Dallas is the most populated area without a second team in a major sport. And I think they could do football, baseball. Well, the problem with baseball is it's centrally located. Like I think you could put another football team. There's so many fans. Baseball, it's centrally located in Arlington between Dallas and Fort Worth that it would almost be better if the Rangers were in Dallas, that you could bring a team to Fort Worth or something like that.
Yeah.
They would have to be successful for, I think a bad football team could still survive
What it
here. Bad
you know,
baseball team, not so much.
I think Dallas could sustain this, and obviously the Dallas mayor, made those comments because they don't have a team actually in Dallas. It's kind of it's an odd situation. The Dallas Cowboys used to be they actually, I guess, were they ever in Dallas? I guess when they played at the Cotton Bowl,
I mean, they were in Dallas County when,
but
you played in Irving.
they're not a Dallas team now, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what's it's when they moved to Arlington. I know it was a big deal in Dallas, so I think it's very I think it's probably a big pushing point for them to get a team in Dallas. I mean, in our future, our lifetime, we may see a team go into actual Dallas proper.
Yeah. My thinking is, sure, there's going to be expansion, relocation, but what other cities are ahead of Dallas on this list? I think St. Louis is probably up there. San Diego might be up
San
there.
Antonio's always been one that's brought up.
Oh, yeah, and I think I don't know that it would ever be like between Dallas and San Antonio, but I don't know. Would having,
I think Dallas could
for
probably sustain a team
but for
before.
Jerry Jones from Jerry Jones' perspective, wouldn't it be better to have the team in Dallas rather than have them? Because yeah, you're splitting in Dallas, but San Antonio is cowboy country. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of Houston Texans fans down there, But like you go down there and listen to sports radio, they're a Cowboys
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
Now you bring another team into the Metroplex, yeah, it splits it a little bit. Like I don't even think it'll be, unless it's really successful team and they're going head to head, and maybe they take, but the Cowboys are going to be a big brand. But you move it to San Antonio, I think everybody in San Antonio for the most part goes with that team. Because I
Yeah.
think Houston, I'm probably speaking blasphemy for Houston though, but when they lost the Oilers, I don't know if it was there was only a few years of gap there, but I'm sure there were a lot of fans that just said, we'll be Cowboys fans. I
Yeah.
guess maybe not. That was, when I was much younger, so I don't
I
know
mean,
how
that's why
big
I
of a
think
rivalry that is.
if you have a team move to Dallas, relocate, or a new franchise in Dallas, I think you'll have a lot of fans that would leave the Cowboys and be like, "Yeah, I'm not that big of a fan of them. I'm only a fan because
Yeah.
of where I live." You know?
Yeah, and it wouldn't be the same as, Maverick Stars Rangers, where if the Rangers aren't doing good or the Mavs aren't doing good, I don't necessarily go, okay, what other team am I going to watch? I don't get as upset
Yeah.
as I do with the Cowboys. Uh, and you already see it. People have there's a lot of Chiefs fans in Dallas because people like want to, compartmentalize it in their head that, well, that's kind of a Dallas team. Let's just go with them because they're not big rivals of the Cowboys. They're winning. They're AFC team. We can do that. It's kind of like their second team.
Yeah.
I don't know that I call it my second team, but I do like them for those reasons. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is a Texas native as well, so there's a little bit of tie in there. Um, so I could definitely see it in this aspect where I don't think there's anywhere Jerry Jones will fight tooth and nail before at least a successful team. Like, I know, again, it would take a few years. I don't even know where the Chiefs will be like in a few years, probably still right in the middle of their dynasty. But can you imagine moving a Super Bowl team to Dallas after everything? I mean, because Jerry Jones is like, I just need to keep them relevant. Well, now you're the second team, not brand wise. They'll never, I mean, we're talking 30, 40, 50 year, multiple generations maybe before the Cowboys are overtaken by another team in
But at
Texas
least in
brand wise.
in popularity right now,
Yeah,
as far
so,
as being a
like,
successful team, having, the Swifties and,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
that's a lot to go against.
If you took, like, forget it, any team, if it was a team that was about the same success, like, they win about the same amount of games, same playoff success recently as the Cowboys, you're probably still like, Cowboys dominate sports talk radio and everything. But year in and year out, if a team is doing better than the Cowboys, you think they're gonna get a little more talk. Maybe. It may not be because you see the Rangers just went on a World Series run, and then local sports stations here, we're still mostly talking Cowboys,
Yeah.
even in the middle of all that. So who knows? If it's the Chiefs, you might have an issue on your hand, but, you know, I honestly think the Chargers won't be in LA, or at least announce they're leaving LA, like, within the next 5 years.
Yeah.
To me, like, that they're
Well,
just a second fiddle there in a market that doesn't even like football that much.
with us talking about, football teams, NFL teams in Texas, it kinda makes me think about, the Texans
Yeah, that was
and
our
how
segue. We
wild
talked
their
about the
offseason has been.
Houston Texans, talked about the Dallas Texans, and now the Houston Texans. Forget moving a team in Dallas. I think we have a team already overtaking the Cowboys in Texas.
Yeah.
Houston went further in the playoffs last year. They obviously have a more advantageous situation with a rookie quarterback. Who knows? Sophomore year, there's always going to be, they're going to digress a little bit. Just how much can he? But anytime you have a successful quarterback on a rookie contract, I mean, it's like now that's literally all in. We're going all in now before we have to pay him. And the Texans get him another weapon, trading for Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, that was big, and then the way they restructured his deal is basically to give him all his guaranteed money this year on a
Yeah,
one-year deal, make him a free agent, um, after this season. It's kind of the best of both worlds, right? They're setting him up to, "Hey, you come out and you have the season you want and the season we want you to have. You're gonna, 1, get paid well." I think he's gonna be 22. I don't have it here. I think it's 22,000,000 he's gonna end up making just this year,
yeah,
and then become a unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So if he has a successful season that he needs, in turn makes the Texans successful, he hits a free agent market with everybody wanting him, probably the top wide receiver prospect next season.
Yeah.
Uh, earlier in the season kind of got overshadowed with all the moves they made. They signed Joe Mixon, or they acquired Joe Mixon in a trade
Yeah.
with the Bengals. Um, they re-signed Noah Brown. They re-signed Dalton Schultz. There's just a long list of Danico Autry. They signed to a 2-year
They
deal.
still have draft picks. Their defense is their defense right now, like, it's good right now. But with the young players I have, it
Yeah,
seems like this is coming up to be one of the defensive runs. I don't know if you wanna call it a defense dynasty. If Houston becomes a dynasty, I don't know. I think that's way too soon. You really have to see what CJ Stroud can do. Um, Leading your team to the second round of the playoffs is great for them, but not, let's pump
yeah,
the brakes. But on the defensive side, at least, it looked like maybe Seahawks esque with
yeah.
with the
I'm gonna
talent and the youth.
butcher this name. Is it Danielle Hunter
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the
Daniel
Danielle, is that
Hunter.
right? The
Yeah,
edge rusher from was with the Vikings. They
mhm.
signed him to a 2-year, $49 million deal. I mean, that's a big edge rusher that they like to an already very talented defense.
Yeah, I think they're doing it the right way. Like I said, I'm a big fan of getting like they had a lot of draft picks, so they were able to draft their quarterback sooner. But it's like add a rookie quarterback to an already decent team. I know it doesn't always work that way when you have a top pick. They had a number 2 pick or they traded up to the number 2 pick, I believe. You have to take a quarterback there that just for
Is this
value
Could this
wise.
be the fastest turnaround for an NFL franchise in history?
I mean, I remember 2 years ago when the Cowboys barely beat them, we were like, "This is terrible. Like, how do you barely beat this team?" And the next year, yeah, they I wanna say they competed, I mean, because it really wasn't that close of a game in the divisional round, but you take that plus all the youth they have, just by default, they should get better, right?
Yeah.
A lot of draft picks, and they add all these pieces.
No one expected them to come in with a new coach, a rookie quarterback, this young team, and be a
Yeah.
playoff contender, and not and to be a team that won a playoff game.
Yeah, and, all these all-in moves, it's they have a much the Texans have a much harder route to the playoffs than, let's say, the Cowboys. Because in all honesty, unless you get a bye week, which I still think Chiefs are on top, the Ravens are probably still, a bit, better than a better equipped to get that bye week than the Texans. At some point, you're going to go through maybe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. I'll even say Josh Allen now that they don't have Stephon Diggs. But I mean, their plan is to, I assume, go after a receiver in the draft. Uh, CJ Stroud's still probably the fourth best quarterback, and that might be pushing it. In the AFC, it's just been 1 year. I mean, he might be better, but we can't it's hard to say that. Whereas, you just compare him to the Cowboys, who does Dak have to beat? Yes, I know he just lost to Jordan Love and the Packers, but I think you play that game multiple times, the Cowboys should win that game. Really, you just have to get lucky. You have Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, who's kinda lost a lot of the lust. Uh, I mean, Brock Purdy is really the biggest threat in the NFC. AFC is much more you put the Texans in the NFC, I think they're the second best team behind the 49ers,
Yeah,
or the second best chance of, making the Super Bowl.
yeah.
It's been a big turnaround where the Cowboys I still think well, we'll see how Stephon Diggs plays out. I think you still say the Cowboys have more talent on their team, but I don't know, after, they're adding a lot of really good talent as the Cowboys have great talent.
Mhm.
They're a little top heavy on their talent, but they have a lot of really good talent as well. That the Texans just I mean, obviously, they're in a better situation cap-wise, they're not paying their quarterback $50,000,000 this year. Um, and even, like, if it doesn't work out with Stephon Diggs, like, well, we're not screwing up our chance at signing CJ Stroud if, we think he's the guy because Stephon Diggs will walk. I
Yeah,
think it's and they really didn't give up much because, I mean, they gave up a few picks, but they traded picks as well. So,
yeah,
really, it's like you're looking at a 4th rounder, 5th rounder when you take all the trades. So they didn't go out and trade some of their first rounders they had from the Browns. And, I think
It's a good
Man,
run for them to go, like you said, go all in and make a run this year, and if they lose Stephon Diggs, then they lose him, but they're playing it right where, we saw, this week there were comments that, Derrick Henry was asked if the Cowboys reached out to him, and he said, "No, they didn't," but that would be crazy, wouldn't it?
yeah, I mean, and I don't knock them for not signing Derrick Henry necessarily. Like, you can't say, I mean, depending on the situation, depending on what, the negotiations are, I'm never going to say, well, you should have signed him no matter what. But the fact that they didn't even reach
They
out
didn't
to
even
him,
reach out.
yeah, I understand when you can't get a deal done, even though you said all in, whatever. All in is Eric Kendricks, I guess. But to not even reach out, like, reach out to him, reach out to Barkley, reach out to everybody. Like, just kick the tires, see what's going on. Just make it look like you're doing something.
Yeah.
Um, I can't imagine them, just going out and hitting a home run draft. I think, I mean, they've been, recency, recent drafts have shown us they've been very good at drafting these last few years, and hopefully they don't bomb that. Even when they've been criticized, it turns out, okay, that was a really good draft. But the fact that you didn't sign any free agents outside of Kendricks, which that is not get crazy, that was a really good signing. That you have so many holes to fill,
But does that
you can't fill
that
them with all rookies.
is that the definition of all in?
Not at all. I mean, me being sarcastic and joking about it, I think answers that question. Now, to be fair, you do get Diggs back. I mean, you did bring back a lot of players. You lost some players too.
But I also
But
don't think you make those comments to say we're all in this year. Well, if you're basing that on the team you already have, then you've been all in.
yeah, exactly. And it was an emotional situation. We talked about women's college basketball and Angel Reese and the comments right after the game and judging her in situations. And I said, like, when you put people at that level of athleticism and competition, and you say they have to stay in front of the cameras and talk right after a
Yeah.
game, you're going to get stuff that's not necessarily them. And I think that was a situation with Jerry Jones. It was right after a loss. He had to answer for his team that he put together. That year after year, it's disappointment. And usually it's like, oh, we could have had, like, even when they lost the 49ers the last 2 years, it was within one possession. And you saw them come back and make a run. And you're like, oh man, if Dak could have just gotten the, spiked the ball, you would have had one more play. You didn't have that with this. Like, getting blown out by an inferior team, or what we thought was inferior. I don't know. Packers are a young team too. But getting blown out by a vastly inferior team
Yeah.
isn't what we're used to. We're used to, okay, yeah, they lose in the first round, or they lose in the second round, they don't make it very far. And Jerry Jones is like, man, if this would have went right, if this would have went right, he didn't have that excuse. He just said, okay, this offseason we're going all in.
Yeah.
I don't blame him for saying it, but you understand where you're at this offseason. It's not like, let's see what happens. Sure, things will, happen that you didn't know were going to happen, and vice versa. But I think when Steven Jones heard him say that, he's like, hell no, we're not. We can't go all in.
Yeah.
We don't have the cap space to do what you're trying to say. So
Yeah.
poor choice of words for him. Not that they've had a bad offseason necessarily. You'd like them to do more, but they are in the situation they're in. They have just gone 3 straight years winning 12 games, although that didn't
Yeah.
come to playoff success. But usually when teams win a lot like that, or have success with a talented team, you can't sustain that for very long because of the cap situation. So I'm not mad that they're not in a great cap position. Whether you want to say, hey, Dak shouldn't have been the guy, whatever, but they are in the situation they are in because of that. That's how it works. I think if he wouldn't have said all in, we wouldn't be talking. And all in really didn't help him. I don't think there were Cowboys fans that go, oh, thank God Jerry Jones said we're all in. I trust
No,
him.
I think when you hear those comments though at the time, you think, okay, what does that mean? Okay, they're going to go in, they're going to get a dominant running back, to help that because we were a one-dimensional team.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go in and we're going to stack up our defensive line even more to help with the run defense. Okay, what are they going to do there? We have to rebuild our offensive line now. We're looking at probably needing the draft to fill the needs we had
Yeah.
versus let's go sign some proven guys, some big names, and make a
And
run at this thing. And that's tough when you look at an interstate team with the Texans that's doing the same thing.
yeah.
Like
Or even more
they're going all
comparably,
they're
even more
saying it, but they're actually going all in.
even more comparably, the Eagles of the last few years where they're successful. It's not like they're getting a lot. I mean, but they're trading away picks, getting picks back. I remember Jerry Jones a couple of years ago saying, we don't want to get ourselves in a bind with you trading away our future, something like that. Like, I'm paraphrasing because the Eagles traded away. I can't. It was one of the receivers they got. I can't remember the exact one or which one they traded, but they traded a first round pick, but they still had a number 10 or a number 11 pick in that draft. It's like, okay, it's easy to say, well, the Texans have been bad so many years. They've done good with the draft. They were able to get a lot of picks back for Watson, and like that's what happens when you're bad. But then you look at the Eagles and it's like, well, damn, they won a Super Bowl recently. They're winning just as much as you are. Not more. Obviously, having more playoff success, being in NFC Championship games, going to the Super Bowl again, and I mean the Eagles have had 2 Super Bowl runs. I mean, obviously losing one with a different coach, a different quarterback, all within like 5 years.
Yeah.
Um, that that hurts, and maybe they draft really well. I'm confident that they can have a really good draft because they've shown that recently that you're gonna have a great draft and maybe you even have a good year, and then they say, "See, this is what we meant." And like, well, that's not. You can't say all in and be like, "Oh, we're gonna have a really good draft," because really that's the goal. That's what
Mhm.
everyone's goal. Hey, we're gonna have a really good draft. All in. We're gonna give all of our thought and passion and energy to the draft when like you should already be doing. Were you not going all in before?
Yeah.
And then Jerry Jones says, "Oh no, we are. We've been all in every year." I'm like, well, then it doesn't help saying it this year.
No, because you get the fans excited, and I think that's Jerry Jones's biggest issue. Us being in the Metroplex and being Cowboy fans.
You know,
Jerry Jones alienates the fans a lot by the moves he makes, the comments he makes. You know, I can't blame a current Cowboys fan, or maybe a past, that says, "Hey, you know what? I'm done cheering for the Cowboys. I'm going to root on another team."
yeah,
Because I get it. I understand it. I understand your frustration. I understand that you don't want to follow a team that continues to disappoint you after telling you, "Oh, we're doing this. Oh, we're doing this. Oh, we're all in." And then they don't, and they underperform every year. That might be the only saving grace this season for the Cowboys, and let's hope it stays that way, is they didn't make moves. Really, nobody can look at them and say, "Man, they're going to be a team to make a run." It's like, honestly, I don't think they may not win the NFC East still.
yeah.
I mean, even which they were in a way worse position, the uh, Commanders made more moves and stacked a better team than the Cowboys did through the
And they could draft their quarterback in the draft here coming up in a couple of weeks where
Yeah,
I don't know that they'd be I mean, they wouldn't be better than the Cowboys, but they're obviously in that, you're not I don't think you're just running through the NFC East again this year. You might split with
no.
the Eagles again. I'm sure you're not gonna get swept by either the Giants or the Commanders, but I
But
mean,
when you
when's the
get into a
last time you've
playoff
lost to
run,
either of those teams?
if you get into a playoff run, I'm not sure from what we've seen in recent history, because maybe this team's not as good as we think they are. Maybe they don't have the talent that we think they do, because they
Yeah,
haven't shown it, especially when the playoffs come around, or when they have to face teams that really are good. They don't always come through. So maybe they're not as good as we think they are. So when you compare them to other NFC teams in a playoff race, how do they actually stack up? Because I think they're middle of the pack or
yeah,
below
yeah.
we're talking about playoff teams.
Yeah, no, exactly. Maybe because they've lived off being above average. Like I know the kick on them was mediocre, that 8-8 run where they went 3 straight seasons, but overall since they've gotten Romo, they've been above average. And some years greatly above average, just not in the playoffs. Where I don't think Jerry Jones really cares all that much about a Super Bowl. Sure, he wants to win. Why wouldn't you want to win? But Like, as long as you're having winning seasons, since 2006 when Romo took over, you've only had 3 losing seasons, and all those losing seasons are Romo or Dak getting hurt.
Yeah.
That or maybe it's 4 losing, but those are the only ones you've had losing that we're still relevant. I mean, you can compare it to the Browns, the Chargers of late, teams that the Lions, I know they made the NFC Championship, but the Lions in general for the last 20 something years, Cowboys have been relevant. The Jaguars, I know the Jaguars went to the AFC Championship a couple of times since the 90s. That's just that arbitrary line that we want to put on the Cowboys because they haven't been back to that particular point. But none of these teams have won a Super Bowl either. And really, your team year in and year out, same with the Panthers. The Panthers have been to a couple of Super Bowls. They still haven't won. Do you want to trade that for 5-6 years of just bottom of the barrel, and then we make like a 4 or 5 year run because we get Cam Newton, we make it to a Super Bowl and lose?
The thing is that's kind of how the NFL runs, though. It goes in
Yeah,
spurts, and you have a short window with a certain roster. With the salary cap constraints and these contracts, and in the NFL, guys don't re-up on contracts that often. Even you see the Chiefs; they were a pretty different looking team this year than they have been in past years.
yeah.
Outside of Mahomes and Kelsey, they're a pretty young, pretty different team, and they found a way. I mean, no one thought they were the team to make a Super Bowl run.
Even them, they went through that lull. I remember when the Chiefs weren't good. Then you get
Yeah,
Alex Smith, and then you're like, okay, we've have some decent years. Um, and I'm gonna say the Cowboys weren't lucky that they were cursed to get 2 franchise quarterbacks back to back. Because when you have a franchise quarterback, you don't like, especially when you're the Cowboys, you don't say, okay, let's rebuild.
yeah.
Because you're like, well, we have, say
Do
what you want
you?
about Dak Prescott. I feel like they need to go through that rebuilding phase, but I'm like, you have you have a good quarterback, you have a good roster. Just I don't want to let it go yet until, eventually you're like, well, we have to do something. It's not working.
On paper, are the Dallas Cowboys better than the Kansas City Chiefs?
Um,
Talent for talent.
I I think the Chiefs, I don't know. I mean, I think you put them up against each other, it's always going to be a close game. Maybe not in a playoff environment
I'm not
because
saying to put like you match up your roster versus
I
their
think they do.
roster.
I think the Cowboys, like we were talking about them being top heavy, I think they're more evenly distributed talent wise than the Chiefs. The Chiefs are very top heavy uh with Kelsey and Mahomes and Jones.
And
Obviously,
basically
like
a
let's break
receiving
it
core
down.
that you don't know.
But yeah, break it down. The Cowboys have better receivers than they do. Yes. They have a
Mhm.
better offensive line. Well, now I don't know. But last year I would have said yes. A better defense. Before last year, I would have said yes. It was probably a push last year because they had a real Chiefs had a
Well,
decent defense last year.
but look
Quarterback,
at that is
absolutely not.
talent wise on paper. I'm talking all on paper, not like what we saw. On paper, the Cowboys should have been the best defense in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, talent-wise, I think they're very comparable to the Chiefs.
So then what's the difference? Andy Reid and Mike McCarthy?
You
Is
can
that
you can
is
make
that
that.
really what we're talking about? The issues the Cowboys have? Is that the outlier?
I mean, I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. Like Dak can be MVP level. He can be some years top 5 quarterback, other years, most years probably top 10 quarterback. But that doesn't mean he can, for whatever reason, he just doesn't have it in the playoffs. I don't necessarily think that that's it. I'm like, Dak could win a Super Bowl if you give him the right. But again, I said it last year, like, I don't think Dak can be the guy. And he was the guy this year because you didn't have a good running back. Uh, it worked for the regular season because he had a lot of talent and they had a relatively easy schedule, like, except for going like the last few weeks, which is when he kind of got pushed off that MVP pedestal. And then when you play regular teams, I think Dak did okay in the second half of that Packers game. Him and CeeDee Lamb were just off in the first half. I think Dak is good
But
enough
can
if you
you
build a
ask,
team
like,
around him.
yes, players have off times and off games, but you don't see that from the Patrick Mahomes when it matters. Yes,
yeah,
last year they looked bad early in the
and
season,
that's why
and no
I
one
don't think you
thought.
could just say they have talent. They have the same amount of talent, sure. Like,
But when it
are they
comes down to winning a game, do
it's
do the
different.
Dallas Cowboys have what it takes?
And that's what I'm saying. There's so many factors, and I don't know. I mean, Mike McCarthy is obviously an inferior coach to,
Yeah, Andy Reid.
Andy Reid's taken, you know, at the time Donovan McNabb was one of the better quarterbacks, but you don't think of him as like a lights out quarterback. He took him to 4 straight NFC championship games, a Super Bowl. Then Andy Reid comes and has success with the Chiefs. That McCarthy won 1 Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's been to the playoffs 3 straight years with the Cowboys. But
But
it's like
with
I think
probably
you have a lot of really good.
the most talented roster in football.
I think McCarthy's the same deal. He's a very good coach, but maybe needs to be carried by his team or his quarterback or maybe even his defense. Where yes, Mike McCarthy's a really good coach. You look at, hey, that's a solid coach. We can work with that. Dak Prescott, we can work with that. And you look at their roster in general, we can work with all that. But you don't have that one person like the Chiefs have Mahomes.
Mhm.
You put Dak on the Chiefs, they probably have some. I mean, they had the same record this year, I believe. If the Cowboys didn't have one more, I think they both had 12 wins, but they probably have some of the same success in the regular season because Dak's a good enough quarterback to compete, but he just doesn't have that. And I think the Cowboys' issues, and you can say it's Jerry Jones not wanting to hire a coach like Jimmy Johnson or whatever you want to say, the it factor or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what the factor is, but if you put a lot of above average, sometimes looks elite talent out there without that one person or that one factor. Again, I don't know I'm not saying it's leadership because Dak's probably one of the best leaders in the NFL. But you just have somebody who like they can't carry this team. This Mike McCarthy can't coach this team to a championship. He might not be a big liability like some coaches. He could do it, but he needs other things. He needs Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott could win, but maybe he needs Andy Reid. Maybe he needs Bill Belichick or something. I'm not saying Cowboys go get those coaches. I'm just saying he needs a coach like that. And I think you have a head coach and a quarterback that are above average, again, can look really, really good. Coach of the year, MVP style decisions. But together, maybe they just don't mix well.
Yeah.
Not necessarily personality wise, but you just don't. There's a lot of confusion. How many times do they just go, you're like, what the hell happened? And neither of them really have an answer for you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think talent wise, the Cowboys line up with anybody right now. Now, if you want to break it down, there's obviously issues with that, but there's just so many factors in it in winning a championship. And let's say luck or just a lot has to happen. We saw with the Rangers winning the World Series. A lot has to happen. The Rangers weren't the best team last year at all. And they were the best team in the playoffs. They turned out, I mean, at least on the road. But compare the Cowboys to the Rangers. The Cowboys, well, I don't know. The Rangers this year look pretty good, but the Cowboys on paper look way more talented and equipped to win a championship than the Rangers do.
Yeah.
But the Rangers just did it. I don't know. I say that, and they had two of the top 3 MVP candidates last year.
Yeah.
I think that's a good segue to jump into baseball, unless you have something else on the Cowboys.
No.
We need our blood pressure to go down and just relax
Yeah.
a little bit. I guess Landon's not going to jump into here, but baseball's pretty much underway now. We're about 2 weeks in. Rangers are in first place. They just whooped that ass in Houston. I was here, but whooped the Astros' ass last night. Cody Bradford pitched 7 1/3 innings, gave up 1 run, just shut down performance, and then
Hometown guy too.
Yes,
Toledo.
and the Rangers win 10-2. They were winning 10-0 most of the game. If you were an Astros fan, is it panic time or is it just? I mean, I know they have a lot of they have injuries and deals
There's
like that, but
still a lot of baseball to play.
Obviously, yeah. Let's not overreact. But are you putting those feelers out? Like, are they really just a couple of players difference in being a bad team and a World Series contender?
I think so.
Okay, because normally you're like, okay, if we're going for a World Series this year and we're missing a couple players, because I mean the Rangers are missing their top 2 pitchers. I know DeGrom hasn't really shown that yet. He's been injured too much, and
Yeah.
Scherzer's been pretty good. But you're thinking, okay, well, maybe just stay around 500. And again, we're very early into this. Ironically, the 2 wins the Astros have are shutouts. So that what I feel is all you have to do, analytically, you score a run, you're going to beat the Astros this year.
Yeah.
Right now, they have a no hitter and then like a 6-0 win, I think. But yeah, the Astros are struggling. The Rangers not so much. They're 5-2 right now.
No, even with the injuries they have, I mean, I think that's going to be the key to it is just with what injuries they have already in the season, it's just stay healthy and get those guys back,
I mean,
later in the season. But if they keep running, I mean, they look like a World Series contender again this year for sure. Last year was not a fluke and a one time deal.
yeah. I mean, you can talk about injuries. Josh Young is out. I mean, he hadn't been out that long, but the Rangers have looked okay without him. Let's say
Yeah,
they're 2-1 since he got injured, maybe 3-1. But obviously their offense was fine last night. It was not that it's not a loss, and you want Josh Young is back as soon as possible.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk more baseball, especially as Landon's on. Like he's our baseball expert. But let's talk about this. Nugget will stay in the division. The Oakland A's. I know we talked about this on the sports page. We were kind of discussing back and forth, talking about A's debacle of attendance and all that. When are they moving to Vegas? And we're like, well, the stadium's not going to be ready for a few years. Maybe they move somewhat. We
Was it
heard earlier this year
28? Is that
27 or 28. Well, I guess 28 by what we're about to talk about, but that's what we were talking about. It's like, I think it's 27 or 28. But they did mention their lease was up this year, so they could go somewhere else. And we're like, that might not happen, but it is happening. So the Oakland A's are heading to Sacramento for the 2025, 2020 through 2027. So for 3 seasons, they'll play in Sacramento, which I I don't know. We'd have to get Cole in on this, Cole Rambo, and ask him. Sacramento's it's not the same metropolitan area, but it's a couple hours away, so it's kind of that vicinity. I'm sure a lot of Sacramento fans are Giants or Sacramento residents are Giants, and some A's fans probably. It's in that vicinity of San Francisco, Oakland. I'm not sure
Yeah, I
how
don't
far away it is.
geographically, I don't know, but what I wonder what keeps them from just going ahead and making if you're gonna relocate from your stadium, what keeps you from just going ahead and rebranding and relocating to Vegas?
So that's my thought, because I was saying like, okay, there's a minor league stadium. They joked about like, well, they're averaging less attendance than that, anyways. I don't know where they're playing in Sacramento. I don't know if it's been announced. I know Sacramento does have minor league stadiums.
I think it was the minor league stadium is what the rumor is.
So minor league stadiums can be anywhere from 10,000 down to like 1,500. So
Yeah.
I assume that's going to be more, because if Vegas has the Vegas whatever, because they have a really nice minor league stadium, just not very big. If they can accommodate 3,000, I'm assuming the Sacramento stadium is bigger. We'll have to look up, if you want to look that up real quick. I'll just go through this field of notes I have if you want to look at stadiums in Sacramento. Yeah, the A's are heading to Sacramento. They announced it on April 2nd. So we were kind of thinking, is this an April Fool's thing? Too late? What? Because when people share it, you're like, oh, I don't know when it was originally posted. ESPN did report it. But they're the 2025, 2026, and 2027 seasons, while they wait for the new stadium in Vegas. And we were going back and forth like, hey, they could use the California Angels logo, the CA, they could be the California A's. The A's have trademarked the Sacramento A's and the Sacramento Athletics, which is a little odd, because when I was doing a little bit of research, there is a Sacramento Athletics, a collegiate team obviously in Sacramento or near Sacramento. So I don't know if that's their name, or maybe it's just like, Texas Athletics, Oklahoma University Athletics. Maybe it's just Sacramento Athletics in general. But so they will be called the Sacramento A's and the Sacramento Athletics. I would assume for 3 years they would just wear uniforms that say athletics. I don't know if they'll go out and make I don't know, they could probably sell a lot of those, make uniforms that say Sacramento on them.
Yeah. So the stadium, is Sutter Health Park
Okay.
in Sacramento, is the home to the River Cats.
Yes, River Cats. I remember watching a documentary about them.
So uh, the stadium has 10,624 fixed permanent seats, and then a grass berm. So they can seat a total of 14,014.
Mhm.
Uh, the original capacity was 14,611, and then they decreased it in 2005 uh, with the addition of a party deck.
Okay.
So roughly 14,000 seat stadium, which looking at an aerial photo of it, not a bad looking ballpark. I think
I think
do
your
you think
standards are pretty low looking at the Coliseum, though.
yes, but I think of minor league stadiums, this is probably one of the better, more professional, bigger
Yeah,
looking
I
ones.
I knew Sacramento had a notable minor league team. Like I said, I watched it was either a YouTube video or documentary or something like that. When you said the River Cats, I remember that because Sacramento has gone through this long process of trying to get an MLB team. So I think the A's will be pretty successful there for a couple of years.
Do you think
Um,
that the attendance goes up in games, the following behind the team goes up in even just a slight relocation like that?
I'm going to say yes because of two things. One, the town, the city wants it. Like, yeah, I think it's relatively close. It's Northern California, but it's far enough away. It's not right there. Like even A's fans, if they want to go to games, can still go. Sacramento wanted this, and maybe this is sort of like a Oklahoma City where the Hornets played there after Hurricane Katrina. Maybe it kind of shows that hey, we can support an MLB team, and they go ahead and like it's a great opportunity for Sacramento. So I think they're going to go all out for it. And even then, we saw athletics in Oakland have fans when they went to a couple of games protesting because it's like, hey, we're protesting. It's not our fault. We have support. We're just not going because we don't like the ownership. And they organized a couple of games where they nearly sold out the Coliseum, or not the Coliseum. Is that what it's called? The
Yeah.
Oakland Coliseum. I'm thinking USC when I say Coliseum, but they have the fans there. So it's even if it's a bad team, like I think they're going to sell out just about every game. It is a small stadium. It's not that difficult to sell out, but they're definitely going to go up because there's nowhere else to go but up
So
with their attendance. But it doesn't. The factors like, hey, we're not putting a big budget together for the team. Stuff like that does not matter when you're going to be there for 3 years. Like,
so
sure,
Sacramento's 81.5 miles from Oakland, and it's
okay,
about an
so
hour and 13-minute drive.
compared to like DFW, I mean that's further, way further than Dallas Fort Worth, but they're about 20 miles. But sometimes it could take about an hour to get around depending on, where it is. So that's more like, I guess, like Waco compared to us,
Yeah.
Fort Worth and Waco or something. Um, I think they're going to be limited by their seating. I think they could do way much. You could have a 30,000 seat ballpark, and I think you'd still sell out
Now
most
this,
games.
this moves them an hour closer to Nevada.
Yeah, maybe you get some of that. Um,
Yeah.
like not necessarily closer to Vegas, but to Nevada in general. So
Yeah,
maybe,
no, it's probably moving you a little further from Vegas. Vegas is the very bottom tip of Nevada,
but you
but
give it like Carson City and
Reno would be
Reno, yeah,
essentially
Reno.
on
Well,
the
yeah,
drive
Carson
to
City's over
Reno.
there, Reno. So, yeah, maybe because I would assume that Reno would take up as an A's town when they move to Vegas. Maybe they do now because that's probably the closest. Maybe A's and Giants are their closest teams, um, comparatively. But I mean, you might as well. I mean, you're going to make money. I might buy a Sacramento A's hat just because, or a jersey because it's going to be short lived.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool, you don't normally see this where someone's going to relocate and actually rebrand for a few years like this.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
rebranding part is the odd part to me. Even with the Cowboys moving, I mean, what, half an hour from their location, they still kept the Dallas Cowboys. You had that
yeah,
stigma,
I
but
mean
is that the problem? The stigma between Oakland, and they want to stick it to them so bad as they're taking Oakland away?
maybe. I mean, Oakland's not a brand like Cowboys were, that was different. I
Right.
mean, even the 49ers are like 45 minutes, almost an hour from San Francisco. But that's a brand as well too. Like, yeah, I mean that could be another point too. But it's funny. You have like it's hard to find the bad guy here. I mean, it's easy to blame, but it's hard to find like the main bad guy. You have the fans in one arena, which they're not the bad guys. I mean, they're not going to games or whatever. It's giving the ownership a reason to say, "Hey, look, we can't sell seats." It's the city of Oakland who is not innocent because they've lost every. They're going to be the first metropolitan area or the first city to lose all four major sports teams at some point because they did have a hockey team. They had the exact issues with the Raiders. They couldn't get a new stadium built. I don't know exactly the Warriors issue. They just moved to San Francisco. Probably some of the same stuff. It just wasn't as well accounted. Where the San Francisco already has a football team and a baseball team, where we're not going to take in those teams, but we'll take in the basketball team. That Oakland's going to lose all. They can't get a stadium built. They had two stadiums in their history: the Oracle Arena and in the Coliseum that the Raiders and A's shared. And then you have the ownership who, you know, they're just trying. They've been trying to move out for years. We'll go back to talking about are the Chiefs moving to Dallas. Look how long it's taken the A's to move out of Oakland, and even the Raiders multiple times. Um, it's a weird situation, and I think it's just fitting that we get another situation that we really have. I'm sure if you go back to when relocation was more prevalent back early in professional sports, that there were teams that moved to here for 1 year, then they moved to here, they rebranded for 1 year, and then there was a lot more of that. Now it's more rare, but we haven't seen in the modern time where a team goes to another town temporarily, knowing it's temporary and saying, "Hey, we're going to be here 3 seasons." I think they're going to kill it in Sacramento for this reason because it's not just like, "Hey, we're here." Like they know we only have 3 years to go catch to have a baseball team, and we have to show out.
Yeah.
Because Sacramento's on kind of on that short list of getting a team, maybe a little bit further down. But the A's are you've never seen a situation quite like this where it was so bad where you couldn't even get a stadium built
Yeah.
at all. And then you just have this decaying, and then you have a team who won't spend money.
Yeah.
I think that's where the ownership is blamed a little bit more. They won't put money up. The fans won't go to the games. The city, it's a shame because I've heard Oakland's a very good sports town. In general, you have very passionate fans. It's just they're kind of in a standoff here, the three parties where everybody can kind of take a step up, but it's like, okay, we'll go to games if you put more for the team. Same with Oakland. We'll build a stadium, but you got to put more for the team. Well, we'll put more for the team once we get a state.
Yeah.
It's just a standoff. Like you go first, and then now the A's are the only ones that are going to be probably be successful because they're going to a right market in Vegas here in a few years, and they're going to make a killing in San Francisco. Where how when you get a new stadium or a new team in general, attendance goes up, jersey sales goes up, you probably get more national games, more national attention. A's are going to get this twice in 4 years
Yeah.
with Sacramento and then Las Vegas, and then Oakland's just there to sit. The fans are just there. It's not a pretty situation. I mean, it's going to be cool to have a team in Vegas. The Rangers are in the same division, so they're going to play a Los Angeles team, Houston, Vegas, and Seattle. But I mean, Oakland is part of baseball history, a significant part, as well as the Coliseum. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be sad. Like I thought we had a few years here, but this is their last season. I think the last. I wouldn't be surprised. I think it'd be kind of cool if the A's just say, "Hey," or fans just say, "Hey, for the last series, let's just pack it out." First of all, we want to see our team for the last time, but just to show it wasn't us.
Yeah.
There's support here.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool. Like, hey, nobody go to any games up until that last year, maybe the last homestand, whatever it is, and just pack it out. And let's just show them, like, stick it to Oakland, like, hey, you had a chance, and then stick it to the ownership, which the ownership will be like, hey, we're going to be
Well,
fine anyways.
it's also of the A's have been known to not spend money on players,
Yeah,
to not bring in big time talent. So you can also see it from Oakland's perspective, the city of Oakland,
yeah,
that why would we invest in this franchise, if you guys you're cheaping out, why would we put the money in also?
Just playing Moneyball, it's
Yeah.
that that's a good interesting situation. It changed the way we look at all sports. Like, playing Moneyball is good, but not when you're cheap. Like,
Yeah.
it's good to get value out of out of these players, but not to that level of cheapness,
Yeah.
and like I said, Sacramento's not gonna care. They're just gonna be glad to have a team for a few years, and then Vegas will give you some slack. Maybe they start spending money then, I don't know, but I doubt it. But you might have a similar situation in Vegas, but with a new stadium. I mean, I haven't seen a city run a team out of town. It's
Yeah.
usually been the other way around, so the A's will be set. They may suck, they may be cheap, whatever, but with the new stadium, they'll be good for another 20 years. Maybe they move back to Oakland,
Yeah.
Raider style or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the Coliseum is gonna be vacant for the first time ever starting next season. Well, for the most part, they may have some stuff, concerts or so, I don't know, but no team. It was the home of the A's for their entire existence in Oakland. Same with the Raiders. The Raiders in Oakland have only
Is
played there.
is Oakland showing their hand that they won't support a major league team and they would never probably get another baseball team voted in there?
Okay, well, after,
Mm.
the A's moved from Sacramento to Vegas, where would I know there's different factors, who knows what happens in 3 years, but where would MLB rather put a team after that point? I'm gonna guess it's Sacramento. You go from 3 years of showing like, you're gonna have to build a stadium anyways, right? Sacramento will be hosting unless there's all kinds of issues or something with that stadium. Um, I think at the end of it, because like I said, Sacramento's on a short list, but I mean, you're still talking about, I think Salt Lake City is higher, Portland's up there, Nashville. We talked about it on a
Mhm.
different episode. Charlotte, Montreal. Like, you're already competing in Oakland after the debacle of the last, I don't know, decade. Even with Oakland, more or less, have competed a lot of years, even on their cheap budget, cheap salaries.
Yeah.
Just from the point of hosting a team, not being able to get a stadium, and not only being able to get a stadium, but actively having issues with ownership, fighting back and forth. I think that's gonna move them at least below Sacramento, not to mention all of these other teams. Who knows? By 2027, we might have a team going to Nashville and Charlotte or Montreal or whatever, but I Oakland's gonna be way down there. I mean, look at St. Louis. We thought St. Louis was gonna get a team. The best they could do was get a USFL team
Yeah.
or an XFL team, whatever. San Diego, same deal. They're not getting anybody. It,
Yeah, I think
I don't think it's
Nashville
good
and
for Oakland.
Charlotte are both teams that are higher up on that board than but I think just long term, not recent history for, the next couple decades.
Yeah, I think
Has
Oakland
Oakland
will
has
be.
Oakland screwed themselves to bring in another a major league baseball team?
It'll be a factor into it where Oakland's going to be on. I know
'Cause
Oakland, the
the
city of
the
Oakland, are going
MLB
to say
does not wanna relocate teams. They
no.
don't
They
wanna
want to
just constantly
expand.
be moving teams.
Expand, if anything. And I think in 10 years, maybe even longer than that. I don't know. I bet you Ace fans are fed up with it where it's almost like you've already started that process, that getting over process, the rebounding where you lose a team like when San Diego and St. Louis lost their NFL teams. We haven't had a team in this amount of time. The A's like, we haven't really had a team in 5 years, already. So by the time, give it 10 years, I think that Oakland's going to start putting it out there like, hey, we're willing to build a stadium for a team or whatever. And
Mhm.
and you see in some situations like Vegas, cities are going to start building arenas and stadiums before they get the team just to attract them,
Yeah.
because they want them to, because I up until recently, it wasn't 100% official that the A's were moving. Like, we all figured it was going to happen, but they've been building a stadium for nearly a year now, if not
Yeah.
talking about it for much longer. We've been talking about A's to Vegas for years.
Yeah.
Um, there's other issues which we're not going to get into. That city should not do that beforehand because you kind of skip a lot of steps. But yeah, I don't think because baseball hasn't been good in Oakland for a while. I don't think it's like a Cleveland, Baltimore situation that the NFL had, where we
Yeah.
need to make it a point to put baseball back in Oakland. I don't think MLB is going to feel that way.
Yeah.
So Oakland's going to kind of get moved to the back, where maybe they jump ahead of some people because they have experience hosting an MLB franchise, but nobody's relocating to Oakland. It's going to have to be like an expansion type situation, unless
Yeah.
Oakland just all of a sudden builds this badass stadium and then they try to attract somebody.
Yeah.
And then
So
there's other issues being in San Francisco, and San Francisco trying to block a lot
with
of.
the A's moving and rebranding, is is there gonna be a requirement, like, what within the uniforms? Like, do they have to, like, pay out, like, Fanatics or MLB for all of this rebranding they're going to do for a short period of time?
I mean, maybe, but I think there's only money to be made. Like, I don't necessarily consider the franchise a rival of the Rangers, maybe at some instances, but I might go buy a Sacramento A's hat, depending, unless they just I think they would miss an opportunity if they just keep the normal hat, or at least make a few cool hats that say Sac A's or Sacramento A's or something. Um, the easy thing would be like, hey, just wear all your uniforms that say Athletics, but I think it would be cool to redesign a little bit, because it's not that difficult if you're going to make new uniforms anyways. Redesign it where you have different lettering or something, because I think when they go to Vegas, they're going to do some sort of uniform change to an extent. I think you should, um, and I think it's a good opportunity in Sacramento. This is just a money grab.
Yeah.
This could be like, you're going to have so much success in Sacramento compared to what you had in Oakland,
Mhm.
that why not rebrand? Screw it. Say, hey, we're gonna add purple in our logo or something, because I don't know, it's a King's color or something crazy. Like, hey, it's 3 years. This is kind of unprecedented in modern baseball. Let's just go crazy with it. There's no rules here. Let's just make all these different uniforms. It's gonna be a rare thing. It's gonna be a rarity. Some uniforms will be worth more than others, because 50, 60 years from now, it's gonna be that weird period 3-year period that we played in Sacramento, if
Yeah.
they're still in Vegas,
Yeah.
because they have a history in Philadelphia, they have a significant history in Kansas City, they have a history in Oakland now, and you assume a significant history in Vegas. The Sacramento is just kind of that weird step. Like, yeah, you've seen teams move for 1 year, a long time ago, but they were never like placeholders. Like, we know we're getting it for 3 years and that's it.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting situation
Yeah, it really is.
that we've been talking about the A's this long
Yeah.
on the podcast. Like, just imagine when they go there. There's going to be a lot of intrigue near the end of the season and then
Mhm.
into next season for this franchise.
Well, and I think the timing of this gives Sacramento time to do all the planning they need to do to
Yeah,
make
I don't
sure
know
it's a
how much
warm
they can
welcome.
renovate their stadium, but they can do maybe not add seating, but just do little
Well, I
things
mean,
to.
there's obviously gonna be some stuff you're probably gonna do to brand with both teams that'll be playing, and then there's scheduling that has to go around.
Yeah, because the River Cats, I assume, play. I mean, it's baseball season, so they're going to play. I don't know what's going to happen with that.
I mean, if it was just a 1-year stint, then I could see, or a short term, I could see them not messing with much
You'll
branding
pro
there.
you'll probably have a lot of oddly long road trips for the A's next year, and then
Yeah.
oddly long home trips where the River Cats are home for a while, then they'll just kind of swap back. Maybe the River Cats play at a different stadium. I don't know. Um, but it's gonna be pretty interesting. I think
There's things
Sacramento's gonna move up on
not
that
just the
list.
seating capacity you think about there, but also the facilities, locker rooms and just other facilities, the camera, all the technology there
Yeah.
for major league cameras. Like, I think there's a lot that needs to happen this next year to outfit that stadium for what it needs to be.
I mean, comparatively, the Oakland Coliseum wasn't
You're
wasn't all
probably
that
right.
well. I mean, yeah, they had the professional equipment and everything for sure, but I guess it wasn't falling apart to the extent that, like the Commander Stadium is falling apart, but man, it's just aged poorly
Mhm.
and it looks bad. Anytime you have to put banners up in there to cover seats, and that's mostly the Raiders' fault. But I can't imagine it not going, like you said, is attendance going to go up? It has to, right? Like, why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it go? Like, this is just good for
I
the
could see them
franchise.
nearly selling out that Sacramento ballpark every home game.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like, obviously the first year when you do a relocation, but there's a 3-year period, and uh, it's not a big stadium for any chance. I mean, by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, that's what I said. The only winner here, I think, is the team itself. Even if they suck in Sacramento, they're still going to get you know, the support, or at
Yeah.
least fans going to the games and people grabbing jerseys and hats that say Sacramento on them and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you for everybody for sticking with us for this episode. Sorry Landon couldn't jump on. He obviously has a lot of things going on. So hopefully we held it down talking baseball. But thanks for listening. Go ahead and subscribe. Like this video. Appreciate it if you're listening on podcasting platforms, anything like that. Go check out all our social media platforms at Peak One Sports. With Tony, I'm Ashton. See you guys later.